Have you ever heard a car roar so loud it felt like the end of the world had just shifted into gear? Max's 1973 V8 Interceptor isn't just a car, it's a prophecy wrapped in steel and matte black paint. When that jet-like whine cuts through the wasteland wind, you're not just hearing an engine, you're hearing the sound of civilization dying in style. But here's the twist. Most of what you think you know about this beast is pure illusion. The Interceptor's massive chrome blower fake, that switch on command supercharger pure movie magic, and the thunderous growl that made audiences grip their armrests. Let's just say a clever sound engineer deserves more credit than a mechanic ever could. Still, somehow the illusion works spectacularly. In the hands of director George Miller, what started as a modest 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT hardtop from Australia, a car barely known outside its homeland, became the most feared machine in cinema history. Not American, not a Mustang, not Detroit steel at all. This was Australian muscle reborn as a weapon of vengeance and myth. The Interceptor is everything we secretly crave from movie machines. It's fast, loud, dangerous, and just believable enough to make you wish it were real. Its thunder across the desert made us believe a new world could rise from the ashes of the old one, where gasoline is gold and horsepower is law. And yet, behind that cinematic legend lies a string of strange truths, 20 to be exact, that reveal just how much smoke, sweat, and cinematic trickery went into building this apocalypse icon. Because the Interceptor, like its driver, isn't what it seems. It's not a car, it's a confession of obsession. So buckle up, we're about to chase down 20 weird facts that'll make you see this legendary machine in a way you never have before, from the faked fury under its hood to the haunting rebirths it survived on screen and off. 20. It's not a Mustang at all. At first glance, you could mistake it for an American legend, something bred in Detroit, sculpted for drag strips and suburban bragging rights. But no, the Interceptor was born oceans away from that fantasy. Its bones belong to a 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT hardtop, a machine exclusive to the Australian market. In the 1970s, if you wanted one in America, you couldn't buy it. You had to import it. Only around 4,000 GT hardtops ever rolled off the production line. For Australia, it was a muscle car that could stand shoulder to shoulder with a Mustang, but with a wild sunburnt accent. It wasn't bred for Los Angeles freeways, it was meant for the outback, where straight roads met endless horizon. George Miller's genius was seeing something cinematic in that obscurity. He took a suburban family car and turned it into a wasteland god. Underneath the menace and dust, it's still a Falcon Australia's full-size family sedan. That makes Max Rockatansky the lone road warrior, the ultimate contradiction, a man fueled by vengeance driving a repurposed dad car into the apocalypse. Somehow that irony only makes it more legendary. 19. The supercharger was fake. That towering chrome supercharger jutting through the hood, the one that makes the car look like it's inhaling fear, is one of cinema's greatest lies. It wasn't connected to the engine. It didn't spin from the crankshaft. It didn't even work. The production team didn't have the budget for a real one, so they rigged up a 671 style blower and connected it to a tiny electric motor. When the cameras rolled, someone off screen flipped a switch to make it spin like a glorified propeller. The sound of that feral whine, pure post-production artistry. No real boost, no extra horsepower, just raw illusion. And yet that illusion changed everything. It looks so right, so wicked that real-life car builders later began installing functional blowers just to match the fake movie version. That's the power of cinematic make-believe. It doesn't need to work, it just needs to look like it could destroy you. 18. Real V8 underneath. Of course, it wasn't all smoke and mirrors. Beneath that sculpted hood sat a genuine 351 Cleveland V8 imported from the United States. A true muscle heart capable of pushing 300 horsepower in stock form more with modifications. It was loud, raw, and ferociously alive. The movie might have faked a few details, but that rumble was real. The Falcon GTs were already tearing up Australian race circuits like Bathurst's Mount Panorama, so when audiences saw Max's machine tearing through the wasteland, they recognized the sound. It wasn't just performance, it was heritage. The engine's deep-throated growl was practically a national anthem for Aussie car culture. George Miller and his crew took that genuine muscle and exaggerated it just enough to feel mythic. Think of it as strapping a thunderstorm to a steering wheel. Zamdijnd catalog custom nose. That razor-sharp nose cone, the one that gives the Interceptor its shark-like snarl, wasn't some bespoke cinematic creation. You could literally order it from a catalog. A company called Arcadapane sold fiberglass nose kits to Aussie car owners who wanted to toughen up their street machines. The design was sleek, angular, aerodynamic, and cheap. The filmmakers didn't invent it, they repurposed it. They grabbed the Arcadapane kit, modified it for the Falcon's front end, and painted the whole thing black. On screen, that nose transformed a once familiar coupe into something alien, something predatory. When it appeared, you didn't see a car, you saw a predator waiting to pounce. Ironically, that low-budget fiberglass nose has become one of the most sought-after parts in movie car history. Finding an original Arcadapane cone today is like finding buried treasure in the wasteland collectors would trade thousands for one. It's the simplest proof that cinematic immortality can start with a mail-order part. 16. The blower switch was movie magic. And then there's that legendary dashboard switch, the one Max flips to activate his supercharger. It's a moment seared into pop culture, a flick of the finger, a mechanical growl, the surge of unstoppable fury. Except again, it's complete nonsense. You can't just turn on a root-style supercharger. It's mechanically driven. It's always spinning when the engine runs. There's no on-off button for horsepower. So what did that switch actually do? Probably nothing. Maybe it triggered the electric motor for the fake blower. Maybe it just gave the actor something to do. Either way, it worked because every viewer believed it. That single motion, that cinematic click has been copied endlessly in games, movies, and car culture ever since. Even engineers roll their eyes, but audiences, they feel it. It's movie magic at its purest science fiction dressed as mechanics. And somehow it's perfect, because Mad Max was never about realism, it was about myth. And every myth needs a moment of impossible power. 15. Dummy side pipes. If you thought those gleaming side pipes could melt asphalt, think again. They were mostly for show-menacing chrome cannons that suggested violence more than they delivered it. The real exhaust system sat tucked underneath the car just like any other street machine. But those pipes along the rocker panels, they were movie jewelry, dangerous-looking decorations that screamed, "Don't mess with me." There was one smart reason for including them though. During filming, when the Interceptor scraped walls or collided with debris, the side pipes took the punishment. They acted like armor, sparing the rare sheet metal beneath from damage. For George Miller's crew, that was a blessing. They couldn't afford replacements, there were no backup Falcons waiting off screen. Each dent risked ending the legend before it began. Some replica builders today actually connect their side pipes to the exhaust for authenticity. The result is deafening and dangerously hot. One careless brush against them and you'd earn a third-degree burn worthy of the wasteland. But for the movie, looks mattered more than logic, because in Mad Max's world, style was survival. 14. Built on a shoestring. When you imagine the birth of such an iconic machine, you might picture a vast Hollywood workshop filled with sparks and blueprints. In truth, the Interceptor was built in the kind of shed where miracles are forged out of desperation. The entire first Mad Max film was shot on a budget of roughly 350,000 Australian dollars, barely enough to buy catering on a modern blockbuster. So the team scavenged, borrowed, welded, and improvised. Parts were pulled from junkyards, panels were hand-shaped, the aluminum front spoiler cut and bent by hand, the roll cage bent from standard tubing and welded in someone's backyard. Every bolt was a gamble, every fix a prayer. They spent roughly 20,000 AUD building the hero car, a fraction of what replicas cost today. But that's the irony, it's precisely the poverty of the production that forced genius to the surface. In the wasteland of budget filmmaking, limitation became invention. And somehow this scrap-built monster outlived most studio-designed legends. 13. Bribe on wheels. Within the story, the Interceptor isn't just a car, it's temptation on 4 tires. When Max's world starts crumbling, his partner dead, his faith in justice shattered, his bosses at the main force patrol offer him something he can't refuse, the last of the V8 Interceptors. It's not money, not safety, not redemption, just a car. But in the barren moral landscape of Mad Max, that car is power, it's control, freedom, the only kind of justice that still roars louder than despair. The scene where Fifi unveils the Interceptor feels ritualistic, like a knight being handed his final sword. The way the camera lingers on Max's expression, you can almost see the deal being sealed, his humanity traded for horsepower. That's the genius of George Miller's symbolism. In this world, machines aren't just machines. They're extensions of identity. When Max accepts the car, he also accepts the madness it represents. The bribe works, but at the cost of his soul. 12 one car became 2. By the time production began on the Road Warrior 1981, the crew faced a problem straight out of a junkyard nightmare. They needed to destroy the Interceptor, but also film it alive and menacing in other scenes. The solution: build another one. The original hero car returned, now aged and scarred, a reflection of Max himself, but they constructed a second, rougher twin specifically for the brutal crash sequences. It didn't have to be perfect, it just had to look real long enough to die dramatically. This 2-car system became the blueprint for future film productions. Nowadays, major movies might build half a dozen identical cars, but back then, 2 was extravagant. The stunt car absorbed the chaos, the rolls, the explosions, the death of the Interceptor. Meanwhile, the hero car stayed camera ready, preserving its mythic beauty for close-ups. The irony, the stunt car's destruction made the original immortal. Without that cinematic sacrifice, we might never have felt the heartbreak of losing it. 11. Nearly scrapped between films. Between Mad Max and the Road Warrior, the original Interceptor almost vanished forever. When the first film wrapped, no one imagined it would become an international cult phenomenon. The car sat abandoned in a warehouse, collecting dust, rust, and regret. At one point, someone suggested stripping it for parts, scrapping the most famous V8 in cinematic history, but fate intervened. When the sequel was greenlit and word spread that Max's world would return, the battered Falcon suddenly became precious again. They dug it out, patched it up, and let its scars tell the story. For the Road Warrior, the car wasn't cleaned or polished. It was aged, intentionally weathered to show years of survival in the desert. Every dent and scratch whispered its history, from hero to relic, from law enforcement to legend. That near-death experience only deepened its mythology, because the Interceptor didn't just survive a fictional apocalypse, it survived the real one that claims so many film props obscurity. 10. Booby-trapped for thieves. The Wasteland teaches one lesson above all: trust no one. And in the Road Warrior, Max's Interceptor carries that philosophy down to the last drop of gasoline. In one unforgettable scene, a scavenger sneaks up to siphon fuel from the car, only to meet an explosive surprise. A rigged fuel cap, a split second of curiosity, followed by a face full of fire. The brilliance of that moment lies in its brutal logic. In Max's world, gasoline is currency and thieves are everywhere, so of course you'd booby-trap your tank. The crew achieved the effect using a small controlled explosive charge and quick editing. No stuntman was actually harmed, but cinematically it sold the illusion of deadly paranoia perfectly. It wasn't just about protecting a vehicle, it was about protecting identity, survival, and control in a world gone mad. From that scene on, the Interceptor wasn't just transportation, it was Max's fortress, his weapon, his sanctuary on wheels. It told the audience that Max wasn't living anymore, he was enduring, and that made the car feel less like a machine and more like a heartbeat. 9. Wrecked on screen, saved in life. Watching the Road Warrior, you can almost feel your stomach drop when the Interceptor finally meets its cinematic death. It rolls, crashes, and explodes into a crumpled, blackened wreck, the ultimate tragedy for car lovers. But here's the twist that wasn't the end. The car destroyed on screen was the stunt double built for that specific sequence. And even that wreck wasn't lost to history. After filming, someone saw what it truly was, not scrap, but a cultural relic, and decided to restore it. Piece by piece, the car was reborn, metal was reshaped, panels replaced, and the Cleveland V8 rebuilt from what was left. Today, that same car gleams again, displayed in museums and exhibitions across the world, its scars hidden but never forgotten. It's poetic, really. The vehicle that symbolized the fall of civilization in fiction ended up being lovingly preserved by civilization itself. In a world obsessed with destruction, the Interceptor's real-life survival feels like an act of redemption. Oita, Museum World Traveler. For most cars, retirement means rust and silence. For the Interceptor, it meant a passport. After filming the main hero car began a second life as a global celebrity traveling between museums, exhibitions, and private collections. It first landed in England, proudly displayed at the Cars of the Stars Motor Museum. Imagine the sight: Max's battered black Falcon parked beside Bond's Aston Martin, Batman's Batmobile, and Kitta from Knight Rider. It didn't just belong there, it commanded the room. Later, the Interceptor made its way to America, appearing in various exhibitions and shows. Each relocation was handled with the care of moving priceless art, climate-controlled trucks, thick ropes and guards, insurance paperwork that could choke a kangaroo. Every scratch, every restored panel was cataloged and authenticated. It became quite literally the Mona Lisa of movie cars, no longer just a prop, but a relic of modern mythology. A machine born from junkyards, now displayed like sacred sculpture. 7. The iconic bug catcher. You can't think of the Interceptor without picturing that towering air scoop the bug catcher with its 3 menacing butterfly valves staring down the horizon. It's the car's face, its personality, its snarl. But like many things on the Interceptor, it was another illusion. The scoop, modeled after a Scott-style injector, was mostly non-functional. The butterflies didn't control airflow because the whole setup wasn't even connected. Sometimes they were operated manually by cable, other times just positioned by hand for the perfect shot. Still, that triple mouth silhouette became one of the most recognizable shapes in cinema. 3 circles wide open like a mechanical predator ready to feed. It's been copied in countless replicas and even in other movies, from Death Proof to Mad Max Fury Road. Real drag racers use similar scoops to feed fuel injection systems, but the movie turned that practical design into an icon of menace. Without it, the car would look incomplete, like Batman without his cape. And today, original Scott bug catchers cost thousands. That's right, collectors pay a fortune for a part that didn't even work in the movie. Proof that myth is sometimes more valuable than machinery. 6. Catchphrase: car the last of the V8 Interceptors. 7 words. That's all it took to etch this machine into pop culture forever. The last of the V8 Interceptors. When Fifi utters that line, it feels biblical, a eulogy for the end of an era. The phrase came from a real-world anxiety, the oil crisis of the 1970s. Massive gas-guzzling engines were disappearing, muscle cars were dying, and George Miller took that truth and pushed it to apocalyptic extremes. In Max's universe, the line isn't just about rarity, it's about extinction. The Interceptor isn't merely a car, it's the final relic of a world that once celebrated excess freedom and speed. It's the last heartbeat of civilization's obsession with combustion. Ironically, Ford Australia kept making V8 Falcons until 2016, meaning the last of the Interceptors outlived its own prophecy by decades. But that's the beauty of film. In the wasteland, myths don't die, they just keep driving. 5. Police DNA under the black. Before it became a demon in matte black, the Interceptor was born wearing the colors of the law. Underneath the scars, the armor, and the growl, it was once a main force patrol pursuit vehicle, a symbol of order in a collapsing world. The transformation from police cruiser to outlaw weapon wasn't just mechanical, it was philosophical. Look closely and you'll see the traces of its past still clinging to the bodywork. The slotted GT Falcon wheels factory standard, the rear spoiler straight from Ford's showroom options, even the GT badges left untouched ghosts of authority haunting a rebel machine. When the paint turned black, it wasn't just color, it was corruption, grief, and evolution rolled into one. The car itself mirrored Max's own descent from law enforcer to lawless survivor. The vehicle that once represented order now embodied chaos. And that contradiction is what makes it so hypnotic. Every dent, every mod, every low growl became an echo of Max's psyche. The Interceptor wasn't just part of his story, it was his story, a symbol of justice burned black by vengeance. 4. Replicas everywhere. Some legends fade, others multiply. From Australia to Japan, from Germany to Texas, the Interceptor has become one of the most obsessively recreated movie cars in history. Hundreds, maybe thousands of replicas exist, each one handcrafted with a devotion that borders on religious. Some builders start with real Falcon XB coupes, hunting them down across continents. Prices for these cars have skyrocketed as demand soared. Others improvise using Mustang's Camaros or even modern Chargers as substitutes. What matters isn't the base metal, it's the myth they're chasing. Japan, oddly enough, has become one of the biggest epicenters of Interceptor fandom. Collectors there import real Falcons from Australia, then spend years perfecting every detail. The Arcata pane nose, the bug catcher, the side pipes, the matte finish. Some of these replicas are cleaner, faster, and more powerful than the original, but they all share one thing: reverence. There are now entire Interceptor clubs that organize road runs and charity cruises where fleets of identical black beasts thunder down highways in unison. The sound is apocalyptic, the sight unforgettable. It's as if the wasteland found a second life roaring down the modern road. Each replica is a love letter, proof that what began as a $20,000 budget build became something far greater, a symbol of rebellion, a mechanical prayer whispered in the language of torque. 3. Fury Road Resurrection. When Mad Max Fury Road exploded onto screens in 2015, George Miller didn't just reboot a franchise, he resurrected a myth, and with it came the Interceptor rebuilt, reborn, and ready to die again. For this new chapter, the production team built multiple versions of the car. Some looked pristine, as if fresh from the MFP motor pool. Others were heavily modified, dented, and decayed, designed to match Max's haunted state of mind. There were versions rigged for specific stunts, some four-wheel drive for sand dunes, others with hidden roll cages and modern V8 engines under the hood. In the film's opening moments, the Interceptor appears in all its old glory, only to be stolen, stripped, and remade by the War Boys into a grotesque parody of itself. That wasn't just narrative irony, it was symbolism. The car that once represented survival and identity was torn apart and turned into something monstrous. It's as if the wasteland itself consumed its own legend. And yet, even in ruin, it still commanded reverence. When the War Boys shout about capturing the last of the V8s, it's not just admiration, it's worship. Because by then, the Interceptor wasn't just Max's car, it was everyone's, the shared relic of a generation that grew up chasing its shadow. 2. Right-hand drive continuity. There's something quietly heroic about the way George Miller refused to bend to Hollywood convention. Even when the franchise went global, even when the majority of its audience drove left-hand cars, Max's Interceptor remained right-hand drive, purely proudly Australian. It created countless headaches on set. Camera angles had to be reversed. Stunt drivers had to retrain muscle memory, but Miller wouldn't compromise. He wanted authenticity, even if it made the shoot harder. The result, a car that never forgot where it came from. While American audiences might not notice, purists do, and they love it. It's the beating reminder that this story was born in the outback, not the backlot. When you see that steering wheel on the wrong side, you're reminded that this is not a Hollywood car, it's a product of a wilder, rougher world. Replica builders across the US often go to insane lengths to maintain that right-hand drive setup, even importing parts just for accuracy. They know that flipping it would feel like sacrilege. The Interceptor's defiance isn't just mechanical, it's cultural. It refuses to conform, it refuses to die, just like Max himself. 1. The soundtrack sleight of hand. Here it is, the ultimate revelation about Max's 1973 V8 Interceptor. The thing that defined its legend made your heart race, your spine tingle, and your mind swear it was hearing raw mechanical fury unleashed was almost entirely fake. That unholy growl, that banshee whine of the supercharger, that thunderous idle like a beast breathing in its sleep, none of it came from the real car. The production sound, too tame. The actual 351 Cleveland V8 sounded good muscular, sure, but it wasn't cinematic. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't apocalypse. So the filmmakers built the sound from scratch, layering recordings from jet engines, industrial turbines, and real supercharged dragsters. Every rumble, every shriek of acceleration, every split-second growl was handcrafted in post-production like a symphony of destruction. You weren't hearing a car, you were hearing a fantasy. That switch Max flips. It didn't activate horsepower, it activated imagination. The whine that followed became one of cinema's most recognizable mechanical sounds, as iconic as the lightsaber's hum or the T-Rex's roar. The irony, the fake blower spinning on its tiny electric motor was nearly silent during filming. Every roar, every gear change, every tailspin was layered later with precision and madness in equal measure. It's a lie so perfect that it became the truth. When audiences heard that howl, they believed the car was alive. They believed power could be switched on like rage itself. And decades later, when fans build replicas, many install custom sound systems just to reproduce that impossible sound. Because they don't want reality, they want the myth. That's what the Interceptor has always been, a beautiful lie that outgrew its own fiction. A Frankenstein built from scrapyard's illusion and noise, and yet somehow it feels more real than any car that's ever existed. Its legend was born from everything Hollywood usually hides: broken parts, tight budgets, and a crew that refused to quit. They didn't have money, so they built myth. They didn't have horsepower, so they built belief. And in doing so, they gave birth to a sound that still echoes across time, a ghost engine revving endlessly somewhere in the collective imagination. Even now, if you close your eyes, you can hear it, that rising whine, the breath before impact, the sound of the world's last V8 refusing to die. The Interceptor was never meant to last, but in the strange physics of cinema, what burns brightest lives forever. And so when you strip away the smoke, the chrome, the noise, and the legends, what's left of Max's 1973 V8 Interceptor, a car built from junkyard scraps. A movie prop that lied to your face. A low-budget illusion born from Australia's dusty roads and a director's relentless vision. And yet, it changed everything. It rewrote the rulebook for movie cars, proving you don't need millions to make magic. You just need conviction, character, and a little bit of madness. The Interceptor wasn't crafted in a lab or a luxury garage, it was forged in necessity. That's what gives it soul. From a discarded police cruiser to a resurrected museum piece, it has outlived its creators, its franchise, and even its own destruction. It's a survivor not just of the wasteland, but of time itself. Every replica that roars to life today is proof that myth trumps machinery, that what we remember isn't the specs, it's the feeling. Because when the Interceptor screams across the desert, it's not just a car anymore. It's the sound of defiance, the sound of cinema saying we'll build our own legends even if we have to fake every piece of them. In the end, that's the genius of it. Mad Max's Interceptor doesn't need to be real to matter. It just needs to keep driving forever through film reels, through generations, through every gearhead's dream. And somewhere out there in a dimly lit workshop, someone is still bolting together another replica, tightening every screw, whispering, "This one's for Max." Because legends don't fade, they idle, they wait, and when the world goes quiet, they roar back to life.